Well, hello there, literary thrill seekers, and welcome to my YouTube channel, Old Man Reads Poetry. I'm your host, the aforementioned Old Man. And today, I would like to introduce you to a delightful little gem of a poem, which I only recently discovered myself. It is by Leigh and is entitled, Jenny Kissed Me. I was an English major in college, which I don't imagine comes as much of a surprise to you, and as such, I was exposed to a plethora of poems and a great many poets. But I can't remember even hearing the name Leigh, and I certainly never encountered this poem. I just recently stumbled upon it while doing research for this YouTube channel. And I'm so glad I did, because I absolutely love it. If you haven't read it before, and I'm guessing you haven't, I hope my reading of it will give you at least a portion of the pleasure it has given me and make you want to reward me with copious praise and large sums of money, or at least by subscribing to my channel. So, here it is. Jenny Kissed Me by Leigh. Jenny kissed me when we met, jumping from the chair she sat in. Time, youth, thief, who love to get sweets into your list, put that in. Say I'm weary, say I'm sad, say that health and wealth have missed me, say I'm growing old, but add, Jenny kissed me. Leigh was born in 1784 in Southgate, England, and died in 1859. This lifespan tracked very closely with what we now call the Romantic period in English literature, and made him a contemporary of Keats, Shelley, and Lord Byron, all of whom he counted as his friends. And although those other three names are all better known today than Hunt's, he was considered a leader in the literary developments of the time. Although they did not themselves talk about a romantic period, nor call themselves romantic poets, they did share a sense that something new and important was happening in literature and in society in general. And when John Keats wrote in his poem, "Great spirits now on earth are sojourning," these will give the world another heart and other pulses, he was referring to William Wordsworth and Leigh. Although Hunt published several books of poetry in his lifetime, about the only poems you are likely to have encountered in anthologies are the one I've just read you, Jenny Kissed Me, and Abu Ben Adhem, a very different but also worthwhile poem. Now, because it is quite short and expresses a very simple idea, you may be tempted to dismiss Jenny Kissed Me as trivial, a mere literary bit of fluff. I believe this would be a mistake. Even the largest of diamonds are relatively small objects, and those which most of us mere mortals will encounter in real life can accurately be called tiny. We do not value them for their size, but for their brilliance. And in my opinion, Jenny Kissed Me is a literary gem, compact but brilliant. Now, in order to assess the value of anything, we must begin with our expectations. What then do we expect from a poem? What is its purpose? What do we expect it to do? I do not claim to be the ultimate authority in this matter, but here is my answer. A poem is a work of art, and the purpose of any work of art is to make us think about something in such a way that it produces an emotional response. That is, to also make us feel something. Does Jenny Kissed Me successfully meet this expectation? I cannot speak for anyone except myself, but for me, it most certainly does. This poem is, of course, about a kiss, and perhaps more importantly, the memory of that kiss. It was a memory Hunt treasured so much that he considered it compensation for some of the disappointments he had experienced in life. And sadly, Hunt was a man who knew a lot about disappointment. In my lifetime, I have myself experienced a very small number of truly memorable kisses, and I treasure the memory of them. When I read Leigh Hunt's account of Jenny's kiss, it triggers those memories and produces a strong emotional response. If you have never experienced such a memorable kiss, I am sorry for you. But even so, if you are a man who understands what it means to find a woman attractive in an objective and impartial way, that is, not wanting to possess her or add her to your list of conquests, but purely and for her own sake, can you hear this poem without feeling at least a slight pang of disappointment that you will never get to meet Jenny? And if you're a woman, don't you feel at least a twinge of envy for Jenny? Wouldn't it be wonderful to think that a man found your kiss to be as memorable as Leigh Hunt does in this poem? These two are emotional responses. And so, Jenny Kissed Me does fulfill our expectation for a work of art. It makes us feel something. What's more, it does so effectively and efficiently. In only 8 lines, it manages to make us care about Jenny without telling us anything about her. Did you notice that Hunt doesn't praise the glory of her raven hair, depict the winsome smile on her ruby lips, wax lyrical about the music in her laughter, try to portray the sparkle in her eyes, or draw our attention to her voluptuous figure, or in fact, describe her in any way? He makes us understand how attractive she is simply by reporting the memorable effect her kiss had on him. This is poetic genius. You're no doubt familiar with the saying, brevity is the soul of wit. It comes from Shakespeare, more specifically from Hamlet in a speech by Polonius. I should know, I once played Polonius in a college production of Hamlet. I don't say this to toot my own horn, of course, but what the heck, toot toot. Now, Shakespeare was not the first to make this observation, nor was he the last. But as Shakespeare often does, he made it in such a clever and memorable way that his version has become a cliché. The great American poet, Edgar Allan Poe, wrote an essay called Philosophy of Composition, in which he assigned a very high value to the quality of brevity in poetry. In that essay, Poe used his famous poem, The Raven, as a case study. If you don't know that poem, which I recently read for you on this channel, I will leave a link to it in the description below, so please check it out. If you do know it, you're aware that it certainly produces a strong emotional response. It takes 108 lines to do so. Jenny Kissed Me also produces, at least in me, a strong emotional response, but it takes only 8 lines to do so. If, as most modern writers and critics agree, brevity is a virtue in written communication, then Jenny Kissed Me must be considered a tremendous success. Personally, I consider it a great short poem, and the shortest great poem I've ever read. As I said before, I love this poem, and I hope that I've succeeded in conveying some of my enthusiasm for it to you. Now, one more thing about this poem. You may be wondering, indeed, I would be surprised if you're not, who Jenny was, and what was her relationship with Leigh Hunt. Well, let me begin by saying that she was not his wife, nor was she his mistress or a romantic interest of any kind. She was Jane Welsh Carlyle, wife of Hunt's good friend Thomas Carlyle, the British essayist, historian, and philosopher. Hunt and the Carlyles lived on the same street in Chelsea. In fact, Hunt moved next door to the Carlyles in 1833. I have read several accounts of the event which led to the writing of this poem, and they do not agree in every detail. But apparently the basic story is this. Hunt walked next door to his friend's house to give Mrs. Carlyle some sort of good news, probably about her husband, and it was this which prompted the kiss. I had hoped to find some mention of Mrs. Carlyle in Hunt's autobiography, but in this I was disappointed. However, in Thomas Carlyle's Reminiscences, Carlyle says this about the relationship between himself, his wife, and Leigh Hunt. Quote, "Our commonest evening sitter for a while was Leigh Hunt, who lived close by and delighted to sit talking with us or listening with real feeling to Jenny's old Scotch tunes on the piano." End quote. Jane Carlyle is often described as a brilliant letter writer and by some as a brilliant conversationalist as well. Presumably, it was during these evening get-togethers that Leigh Hunt developed the admiration and affection for Mrs. Carlyle, which is so movingly reflected in today's poem. If you have enjoyed my reading of this poem, please give me a thumbs up to show you liked it. Feel free to tell me in the comments section below what you did or did not like about my reading, and if there is another poem you would like to hear me read, please request it. I intend to read many more poems, both the well-known and the more obscure, on this channel. By subscribing, you can be sure not to miss any of my readings, which will be automatically provided to you when they are released. And now, since today's poem was such a short one, there is time for me to recite it again for you. So this time, let's give the poet the last word. Jenny Kissed Me by Leigh Hunt. Jenny kissed me when we met, jumping from the chair she sat in. Time, you thief, who love to get sweets into your list, put that in. Say I'm weary, say I'm sad, say that health and wealth have missed me. Say I'm growing old, but add, Jenny kissed me.